How does the most precise, hard-working wide receiver of a generation transform into football history's most chaotic enigma? Before the headlines, the meltdowns, and the shirtless exit in New York, there was a football purist, a man who turned route running into a literal art form. This is the tragic, brilliant, and utterly baffling career of Antonio Brown. In 2010, nobody wanted Antonio Brown. He was deemed too small, too slow, and lacked the pedigree of a first-round star. But what the scouts missed was a terrifying work ethic. When he arrived in Pittsburgh, he wasn't just competing, he was surviving. He forced his way onto the field through pure desperation on special teams, turning a 108-yard kick return against Tennessee into a warning shot to the rest of the league. He worked his way up through the wide receiver depth chart because his transitions out of breaks were completely seamless, leaving cornerbacks guessing until the exact microsecond the ball arrived. Before we continue, I'm on the road to 50,000 subscribers. If you love football history, make sure to hit that subscribe button, I'd greatly appreciate it. From 2013 to 2018, Antonio Brown put together the best 6-year peak from a wide receiver in NFL history, period. He didn't dominate by out-leaping defenders like Calvin Johnson or out-sprinting them like Tyreek Hill. He dominated because he turned wide receiver play into a flawless, high-speed chess match. At just 5'10", Brown manipulated the defensive back's eyesight better than anyone in history. He would sprint directly at a cornerback's leverage, force them to turn their hips in a panic, and the exact millisecond the defender turned his head to look for a football, Brown would vanish into their blind spot. By the time the corner turned back around, Brown already had 3 yards of wide open separation. But creating separation was only half the equation. He was also a master of changing gears and hiding his intentions. Most receivers run at 2 speeds, but Brown played with an entire gearbox, routinely dropping from a dead sprint to a complete motionless stop in just 2 steps to utterly destroy a defensive back's timing. This clinical precision is exactly why his partnership with Ben Roethlisberger operated on a telepathic frequency. When plays broke down and Big Ben escaped the pocket, the true chaos began. Because Brown possessed an uncanny instinct for finding the vacant grass and broken zone coverages, back shoulder fades, and scramble drill conversions became routine backyard football, turning busted plays into 40-yard chunk gains Sunday after Sunday. But dominance this bright burns out the fastest. Many point to the devastating concussive hit by Vontaze Burfict in 2016 as a structural turning point in his trajectory. Whether it was the physical trauma or the growing ego, the football purist slowly faded away, and it was replaced by a volatile force of nature that no locker room could put up with. From Oakland to New England, and finally to Tampa Bay, where he did secure a Super Bowl ring, the brilliance was constantly overshadowed by the chaos. He finished his career with statistics that mirror NFL legends. You think of guys who are the best receivers of all time: Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson. Antonio Brown is right there. A 7-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro. We look at that 6-year peak I mentioned earlier in the video. 2013, 1,499 yards, 8 touchdowns. 2014, 1,698 yards, 13 touchdowns. Then he had 1,800 yards in 2015 with 10 touchdowns. 2016 had 1,200 yards. 2017 had 1,500 yards. And then 2018, 1,297 yards and 15 touchdowns. Now his career started to go downhill after that hit against Burfict in 2016, but I also feel like Juju Smith-Schuster played a factor. When Juju Smith-Schuster came to the Steelers, he was really looking like a promising future star for the Steelers. I feel like Antonio Brown didn't like sharing the ball with Juju. We started to see some, issues in between that chemistry between the Steelers. Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger started having issues with the quarterback. Okay, you never want to have bad chemistry with your quarterback. You just can't have that as a wide receiver. And, when you're Antonio Brown, so dominant, so good, you want the ball. It makes sense. So he had so much locker room issues, and of course off the field he had issues. A rap sheet a mile long. Went to the Raiders, wanted more money, wanted to break off. Didn't work out. Got accused of sexual assault. Went to the Patriots, played 1 game for them. Then went to Tampa Bay for 2 years. Had a pretty solid 2 years there. Of course, winning a Super Bowl, a very productive, receiver in that offense. And then he had a tantrum, walked off the field, and that's really the last thing we know of Antonio Brown as a football player. But he was just such a fun receiver to watch. As a Steeler fan, of course, I watched every game of his. The plays that he would make, the one-handed catches, pinning against his helmet, the toe taps. He was just a complete receiver. He was always compared to Julio Jones in the mid-2010s to the second half of the 2010s. I really mean this. Steeler fan bias aside, was much better than Julio Jones. Julio Jones was a dominant receiver, but Antonio Brown was much more dominant. He was much more of a complete receiver. Now, is he the best receiver of the 2010s? It's hard because you have a prime Calvin Johnson right there. And Calvin Johnson's whole career was in his prime. It got ended because of injuries. So it's hard. I always say that Calvin Johnson in his peak is the best receiver of all time. I still stand by that. But Antonio Brown in his peak, a top 4 receiver. Give me Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, then Antonio Brown. Yes, Antonio Brown's even better than Terrell Owens, Larry Fitzgerald, no doubt about it. A prime, peak, Antonio Brown is a top 4 receiver of all time. You just had to be there. Make sure to comment down below, guys, where you rank Antonio Brown all time. Do you think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame? Of course, when we look at his stats, he 100% is a first ballot Hall of Famer, stats alone. But the way he ended his NFL career, his personality, it might be a Terrell Owens situation. Who knows? But comment down below what you guys think. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like. Subscribe to my channel. Help me get to 50,000 subscribers. I greatly appreciate it, guys. I'm out. Peace.